Ow. Ow. Ow.
Hey! Hey, you! Are you too much of a wimp to work out? Are you a weakling? Built like a sponge? Well, now you too can have muscles. With anchor arms! They slip on like a glove. Just add air.
So I don't know about you guys, but I've been playing BONELAB just about every day lately, even if most of that time is just standing in front of a mirror testing out the mods. Speaking of mods, I'm here today to show you some other, admittedly weird things I've been working on. With pretty much any humanoid figure possible in this game, I really wanted to see how far I could, push that with BONELAB's avatar engine, using some Halo models to do so. But anyway, let's get started. The first thing I wanted to do was get a test subject ready, so I grabbed a model of Mr. Halo himself, the Halo Infinite version of Masterchief, and set it all up at a scale that felt right for a super soldier. Apparently he's canonically 6'10", but my model is 7'5", but it feels great, so I'm gonna leave it as is. I also added an assault rifle to his back just for a nice little final touch. So we had our patient prepped and ready, and I was ready to become Dr. Frankenstein. So, time for some kind of inhumane experiments. Do you guys remember that one weird kind of pale man from Pan's Labyrinth that had eyes on its hands? You know, that movie that gave me nightmares as a kid? Well, for some reason, this popped into my head when modding BONELAB, and I thought, I wonder if eyes of an avatar need to be static to the transform of the model, or if it can move around in-game. So I went into Unity, set it all up, and the conclusion was not exactly what I was hoping for. This angle did give me an idea, though. My body still behaved normally even though my eyes were all the way down here, so I wondered, does the camera need to be really close to the avatar, or can it be as far away as I want? Which led us into test number 2. So I jumped right back into Unity, moved that little handy viewpoint I made, and found that it was working. I needed to adjust the angle and position a bit, but third person in VR was actually working. I did a few little adjustments to get it looking and feeling just right, and then made a version for both left and right shoulders just in case someone has a preference. I gotta tell you, it's a weird feeling to move in VR, but not be in your body. A legitimate out-of-body experience. Still, it's surprisingly easy to get used to in the moment, even when it comes to aiming guns and punches, surprisingly. The downsides are kind of funny though, because normally the point you choose for seeing from is the pivot point for your entire body's rotation with your head. So now when you look left and right super quickly, your body will flail around with incredible speed in an arc, turning your entire body into a deadly crowd control weapon. Even funnier is that you can now just jump incredible distances by swinging your head down low into an upward arc to launch yourself crazy far away. You can even use this mechanic to just lethally headbutt people to death, which is hilarious. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this a feature, not a bug. Overall, I'm actually pretty happy with this one. So next up, I wanted to test out how BONELAB would perform with setting up a model that doesn't really have a standard human shape. I chose 2 models from Halo, the Halo 2 Anniversary version of the Arbiter, and the Engineers, or Huragoks, that most notably appear in Halo 3 ODST. The Arbiter turned out not too great. This one is kind of odd and might need to be rigged much differently in order to work properly in this. I've sunk a bunch of hours into this with trial and error so far, and now it's not even loading up properly, so I'm going to shelve this one for now until I learn a bit more about Blender. So I didn't have many high hopes for the Huragok, but I gave it a shot anyway. To my surprise, even though it isn't perfect, it was actually working. The invisible legs of the skeleton still act as if a model was there, making it seem like you were floating, and even though I needed to reattach some things, clearly, it was in the game. My next goal was to make it so the unused tentacles of this floating hermit crab would react and move based on the direction you were traveling, just to make it seem a bit more authentic. So I grabbed an add-on for Unity called Dynamic Bones, watched a few more tutorials, and got it all working. The only thing is that I found out the hard way that in BONELAB, Dynamic Bones don't work. Maybe Dynamic Bone support will be added later on. If not, oh well, but I tried it out, and I'm still kind of happy with it. It is kind of trippy becoming the Huragok, I will say. And this is where I went off the rails a little bit. I wanted to see how BONELAB would react if I made some terribly cursed body mods, so I made the Long Chief, the Long Neck Chief, the Power Thighs Chief, the Narrow Chief, the Wide Chief, and the Big Arm Chief. The Chief with clappable thighs here I thought would be really fun, but apparently these legs are just way too thick to even stand up, so that one's a scratch. The narrow and wide Spartans are honestly just an affront to all things creative, so we'll just leave it at how it's kind of neat how you actually need to walk specific ways to fit down narrow corridors and doorways. The long neck chief is a trip and a half, looking down at your body like you've just died and you're passing on. Then if you crouch and lean forward a bit, your head becomes too heavy and unbalanced, so it just begins shaking from side to side, turning your stomach upside down. The long chief is unsettling. It's skinnier than a twig, but strong enough to launch things into the stratosphere with a flick of its bony wrist. My arms even got tangled at one point, so that's a thing. The big arm chief has one decrepitly deformed stretched hand, and one hand that I can only assume is on the precipice of exploding, so I quickly switched away from that one. All I wanted to see was if you could have two differently sized arms, but apparently not. All in all, these are the Spartan children that would not have been chosen to become warriors. I'll include these in a mod page for anyone wanting to try them, but be warned, they are truly cursed. Now, this one isn't anything special, but I just call it the Spartan Enforcer. It's kind of chromed out like it's from Cyberpunk 2077. It comes in two different sizes, in case you want to be big or bigger, but otherwise it's just a really fun, heavy replacement avatar. Anyway, on to our last test. So with everything in BONELAB being physics-driven, I was actually curious to know if it was possible to simply just stand on your hands. Maybe even walk on them. So I made the most roided out Spartan ever created and hopped right into the game. This is actually really cool because it worked. I wasn't just standing on my hands in VR, but I was walking on my hands, balancing on one hand and reaching things crazy far away. Okay, now this is where it gets really weird. Because this definitely shouldn't be happening. It was something I'd never experienced before, and crazy thing is that I started to get better at it. I was walking faster. Without even touching the control stick, I was moving with just the physics engine alone. But just like the anchor arms in SpongeBob, these didn't really make you any stronger. Marrow SDK's body frame apparently does have a limit, so I couldn't stretch it for the entire arm. But that didn't stop me from just making it bigger. So I created a new base version that's stronger and walks even better than the first, kept the original as the mini model, and even added in a Titan version that can hardly stand, but is still kind of fun to be in for a second. All in all, this exceeded my expectations and was pretty cool to experience. Anyway, thank you all for watching this more or less ridiculous BONELAB video again. These mods were all kind of silly, but VR is such a wildly different medium for me that I was just way too curious to not try them out. Subscribe if you want to see more VR content from me, or even just hit that like button if you want to save me from the wrath of the YouTube algorithm. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers. Oh boy, oh boy, this is the weirdest Mario. Oh, okay, note to self, don't hop on these. Oh dear. Oh.